Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to acknowledge the candidates for Mayor here tonight. I have to say, I don't know how these people do it. These people have been out at meetings for months, debating and meeting with all sorts of people from one end of the Auckland region to the other. I take my hats off to them. Thank you very much for standing, and thank you for keeping our rather fragile democracy alive. And I want to thank the organisers of the meeting tonight, Campaign for Better Transport, Public Transport Users Association, and New Zealand Transport 2050 for organising this meeting and asking me to come along and speak in the slot. And the reason why I'm here is really because Efeso didn't turn up, so they need a guy there to fill that gap. So here I am. Transport is the biggest issue facing Auckland, and I say that because it can be measured. The Herald did an investigation last year, and they found that in the 10 years of the Super City from end of 2010 to 2020, $10 billion had been spent by the city on 20 corporates, mainly overseas based. $7 billion of that money went through Auckland Transport. So it's a great pity that Efeso isn't here this evening, because that's going to be a major responsibility for the person who wins the mayoralty. Now, speaking of my own personal experience, just to set the scene tonight, from about 2004 to 2015-16, there was strategic coherence in Auckland about transport, about the need for good roads and good rail. And if we were to utilise our rail network much better and much smarter, we could help take congestion off the roads. So there was the plan, quite simple: maximise the use of our existing rail. Where it needs fixing up, fix it up, and that's what we did. Now, sometime 5 or so years ago, kind of coinciding, I'm not saying it's directly part of it, but was certainly influenced by the removal of myself and Christine Fletcher from the board of Auckland Transport, that strategic coherence was lost and replaced by bizarre strategic chaos, especially in regard to rail public transport, because that's where a significant amount of money is going. And so there is three sort of major contradictions that reflect that strategic chaos coming from Auckland Transport. First, just a little bit about Auckland Transport. Auckland Transport has been in existence for 12 years. We think it's, part of the Auckland, it's normal, it's been there. However, it is quite unusual. Nowhere else in the country and nowhere, and never previously before, has been such a powerful bureaucracy, empowered bureaucracy, extremely well-funded bureaucracy in existence. And here's the strange thing about Auckland Transport: it is so big, it is so powerful, but it doesn't actually deliver anything except parking services, parking tickets and stuff like that. All the rest is completely outsourced. So you've got the worst, in some ways, of both worlds. You've got completely private public transport delivery. All of the companies, whether they're rail service delivery or bus service delivery or ferry delivery, are foreign owned, all of them. But it just indicates that public transport services are so lucrative and so well funded by the people of Auckland that it's very profitable for overseas corporates to buy these services up. And in terms of the people of Auckland, once upon a time it could be said that Auckland has underinvested in transport infrastructure. It has never spent enough on transport. You cannot say that now. The people of Auckland have paid more than enough for public transport in particular, but are they getting the return their investment merits? And I think the answer is no. Coming back to, I'll finish up quickly, coming back to these contradictions, the enormous amount of money that's going into the CRL, it started off as, if you like, the finishing point of our sensible strategy to link up the eastern and western parts of the rail network, which have been planned since the 1920s. And the plan, the City Rail Link plan, was actually based on exactly the same corridor as a 1950 plan. It started off with $2.4 billion, which was quite steep, I thought, and I was a champion for it, for 3.4 kilometre tunnel. And then in 2016, it went to $3.4 billion, and then in 2019, $4.4 billion. And as Wayne Brown has revealed, it's going to blow out way more than that. How much, who knows, but it seems that probably around $1 billion, but maybe I've got that wrong. But they're not telling us. They're not even giving us a rough estimate. They've come out with pretext why they're hiding it. Here's a contradiction. While all that money is going into rail, the powers that be have come up with a brand new different mode. We're going to have light rail to the airport down one corridor, and it's going to cost $14.6 billion. I mean, that is completely strategically crazy and irresponsible. That's the first contradiction. Here's the other contradiction. Auckland Transport, that's so powerful bureaucracy, is overseeing all sorts of spending, has done on rail. And it's offshoot because all the staff in CRL Limited, Auckland Transport people, Auckland Transport doesn't really believe in rail after all. That's the contradiction. And why do I say that? Because a whole series of decisions which are in inverse proportion to the money that's going in relate to retrenching rail rather than advancing it. And I don't understand that, but I can give you some examples. Auckland Transport cancellation of the agreed extension of rail services, passenger rail services to Kumu Huapai in 2013 without any public consultation whatsoever. Their eviction of the strategically important for tourism and for ordinary travellers of the Northern Explorer, previously the Overlander, from Britomart. They kicked it out and banished it to the Strand and helped collapse patronage. The recent retrenchment of Onehunga services, the cutting of direct services to Onehunga on a pretext because of temporary work on the CRL, the tunnels, work which was meant to have begun over 6 years ago hasn't been completed, but that's another question. And also the retrenchment of Pukekohe services years before the planned electrification. All that indicates that despite all the money that's going into rail that the people of Auckland like you are all paying for, they don't believe in the mission. So what is wrong with Auckland Transport? There's plenty of things wrong with Auckland Transport. And Madam or Mr. Mayor, if you get in there and if I get elected, let's have an open book investigation, a review of poorly performing Auckland Transport and its unfortunate offshoot, CRL Limited. Thank you very much.